This is pre-Jussie Smollett.
Okay.
But I think she's an OG Smollett, right? Right. Like Evan Rachel Wood, we know now falsified FBI documents.
That's what I was just going to ask about. It's illegal, right?
That's insane. That's a federal crime, right? But there's no accountability for that.
So that's why I have a hard time with it, and that's why I keep getting called, a woman hater and all this. It's really just I am against where feminism is, in what direction it's moving.
I'm like so pro women. I have a wife I love, a mother I love, 2 little sisters. I know strong women, and like they're not like that.
And then you have the media owned by just a handful of people, so they all are coordinated on these narratives. And anyone who goes against it, I mean, not everyone is cut out to go up against it. It's like you get called all sorts of names, and there's it can be terrible.
In 2016, the day after Trump was elected, Evan Rachel Wood comes out and says, I've been abused. I've been sexually abused. She decided to do it after that, which was suspect to me. Because at that point, it's like...
You thought timing was...
It's weird, because I truly believe that Evan Rachel Wood and her co-conspirator, we'll call her Ilma Gore, who made the documentary with her. And I think they're character assassins. Right. I think this is all very political because they're activists, and they're activists because they use like that cult language, like all of the critical race theory type language or radical feminist language where they talk about privilege and gender pronouns and stuff like that, and how much both of them were so anti-Trump. Right. Ilma Gore is known for painting the micro penis painting of Trump, and then supposedly...
Is she an artist?
Yeah, you can call her that.
Okay.
And then supposedly she got beat up by a Trump supporter. This is pre-Jussie Smollett.
Okay.
But I think she's an OG Smollett, right? So this is why I believe that a lot of the things they do are based in this like deranged activism to destroy the people who they think are part of the patriarchy. The whole spiel of the words they use to create this false reality of like the power dynamic that they're all obsessed with. And they're character assassins. So Evan Rachel Wood comes out day after the election. You can remember how crazy the world was at that point with how everyone felt about Trump. We entered a new dimension when Trump was elected because the media heightened itself into like a frenzy. It was bizarre, right?
Right. So
my interpretation is that she took advantage of that time to then come out, become a victim, and then, for whatever reason, maybe she does truly believe she's a victim. But I think, we created a world where victimhood is like a currency. And we saw everyone who becomes a victim gets a platform, gets fame, right? She's also a child star, So I think she used that as an opportunity to propel herself into like this new world we were at, where like victims were like on the highest protected class. As, real victims should be,
Yeah, well, that's the whole thing is like what this is doing to undermine real victims of abuse.
It's terrible.
I don't see how that's even a controversial stance. I feel like that's why we do talk about these in depth, is because in the end, it's going to damage the long-term effects of how we view. The problem is you're supposed to believe all women, right? And they create these phrases where it makes it so you can't do the questioning we're talking about, right? Right. Like there's James Lindsay, another former professor. He talks about political warfare, and like Mao in China would create what they call a synthetic reality, where you marry a truth to a fiction. So look at Manson. We know he's had crazy stuff on stage, probably done wild stuff, with exes. I don't think to the extent of abuse, but they take that, at least the image of it that people believe, and then marry it to whatever narrative they have. Boom, synthetic reality. And then the people who don't have the time to look into it just believe it. Because look at him. He must be a boogeyman. And then you have the media owned by just a handful of people, so they all are coordinated on these narratives. And anyone who goes against it, I mean, not everyone is cut out to go up against it. It's like you get called all sorts of names, and there's it can be terrible.
I reject that reality for my kids, right?
What's like the bloody video there in
the heart-shaped glasses one.
Heart-shaped, yes.
Yeah, that's from his album when he was like with her, and he was playing off the Lolita image because she wore the heart-shaped glasses, which was on the poster, and they filmed a video which she then later claimed he raped her while filming in front of everybody, which also sounds terrible and like crazy. I happen to know someone who was there.
Oh, really?
And totally refutes all of that. Saw it all, and it's a different reality from what Evan has said. And then like like Colonel Kurtz, she's like one of the best on YouTube. Her and the Manson cases are like covering this case like solidly. And Kurtz interviewed another woman who was at that set who also says like it wasn't like that. Like there was no penetration or anything like that. And also said Evan Rachel Wood was like really into it and helping, direct the whole thing.
So there's other witnesses that are refuting what is.
Yeah, there's a ton of people, but that's the thing is like for whatever reason those voices are completely suppressed.
Right.
And you're like a conspiracy theorist, or you're like you're helping out the abuser, for even saying those things. But it's like, but you're also basing on the flip side everything you hate on Manson on similar sources,
right?
But there's no accountability on that side, right? Like Evan Rachel Wood, we know now falsified FBI documents.
That's what I was just going to ask about. What was the letter?
Evan Rachel Wood submitted the FBI letters for help with a custody thing, for a custody battle she ended up having with Jamie Bell for her son. And she eventually lost that. The other reason was, according to Manson, what he has, Evan Rachel Wood and Elma Gore used those FBI letters to like build their little coalition against Manson. Thinking like, and this is, I guess, my interpretation of it, but like, hey, we know you're with Manson. There's an investigation into him. FBI is doing it.
Posed as the FBI.
But still, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's illegal, right?
That's insane. That's a federal crime, right? But there's no accountability for that. How can they get away with that?
That got dropped, right?
Yeah. I think a lot of judges are politicians. I think a lot of judges are captured by ideology, especially out here. And so that's what's so scary about the whole society at large right now is like that ideology is everywhere where like there is no more, I think, actual justice.
I mean, I think the worst part about covering court cases is you lose that sense that there's anything true in the justice.
Oh,
because it's so corrupt, especially, New York and California. I mean, it's depressing.
It's crazy because in the documentary, they talk about how like it was so bad for her and she like was becoming like abused by him on that tour. And then she also says like Manson had like this Hitler Nazi fetish.
Oh, yeah.
However, there is footage of her on her own volition doing the Nazi salute on stage. There's pictures of her with a Hitler mustache. Interesting.
Well, that's sort of my issue too, is so now these women only exist as blameless victims. And so it's like also sort of an insult to women because it's like, like you're not smart enough to be calculating and conniving and all that,
Yeah. I think,
so
yeah,
it's
I think
like,
it's terrible.
Yeah.
I think radical feminism is like infantilizing women.
I mean, he said it, not
no,
me.
it's the truth.
But I do agree.
It's the truth. Like,
yes. So that's why I have a hard time with it. And that's why I keep getting called, a woman hater and all this. It's really just, I am against where feminism is, in what direction it's moving.
I'm like so pro women. I have a wife I love, a mother I love, 2 little sisters. I know strong women, and like they're not like that. But like it does infantilize women, and it makes them like these like blameless angels, like you're saying. And a lot of them also, these women said that they had these memories repressed, and that they bubbled up in the aftermath of Evan coming out at all, which is refuted by a lot of people who are like who deal in memories and psychology.
So. It's again, that's one of the reasons we should be questioning these cases a little closer.
You have to. That's how you defeat like the false reality. And we should get back to like the actual victims, and care about those people, give them actual platforms, save them.
The Hollywood sex trials, I don't know that are the best, examples of like.
No, I mean, okay, so the documentary with her is so funny to me. This is my takeaway of the documentary is that if you watch it from my point of view, it's about a woman who had a rough childhood with an actor family, who probably was on the periphery of abuse in terms of her parents, is what she puts it that way, and then is taken by her mom across the country to get away from her dad, and then creates this narrative in my mind to get back at her dad and Trump and politics by making Manson her boogeyman, and then kidnaps her own son just like she was kidnapped, and goes to Tennessee and stays there.
Well, so maybe you should explain the custody situation, because that's a new development with this whole thing.
So she took her son to, I guess, Tennessee. I think it was Nashville.
And this is the son she had with
Jamie Bell. Because after Manson and her broke up, she went back to Jamie Bell. They had a kid, and she says she was in such fear of Manson that she had to get out of LA. It was too dangerous, right? All the threats, all this stuff. So she bounced. She took the kid. And then it looks like, according to court documents, Jamie Bell hardly saw his kid for like a year or two. Maybe there was like an instance in Florida or something. So he's fighting this whole time. And he's just like, no. And she's, what it appears to be, and I think how he puts it, is like she's using Manson as a reason to keep her kid away. Because he can't go back to LA. She's pretty much, in my mind, indoctrinating her kid into thinking Manson's a monster, who's never met Manson, has nothing to do with Manson, but is like, I think like drawing images of Manson as a monster. Like, it's cult behavior, right? So you're creating really a monster. Weird
with the kids, the custody, and then the whole Manson.
Yeah, I mean,
she's blaming him for the reason taking this.
She can't come back because she's saving her kid. You know, in the documentary, she puts it, she has to get out of Dodge, basically. Go away to save herself and her kid, which really I don't think is the truth, and she lost that custody battle.
So she did, yeah. That's what
she lost it. It's really sad.
What makes you so sure that these are, you know, so far-fetched allegations? Like, what do you think is her incentive? If
the truth was on her side, she wouldn't have to forge FBI letters. She wouldn't have to gaslight women into thinking they had repressed memories. That Ashley Morgan character has already written to the court saying I lied, and those girls convinced me otherwise. She said I was gaslit. I was gaslit by these women, and actually, there's nothing bad between me and Manson. It was all consensual, right? Which is weird because it wasn't used by the judge in his favor.
Wait, that was a big turn of events when she came forward.
Crazy. It's crazy.
She came out and said I was really pushed and coerced into doing this, right?
And she's in a documentary, like in the whole little room, talking about how he was so bad. And you know, a while later, she recants. So all of that put together, and I also think she's an opportunist, and I think she has no distinction between reality and fiction. She's a child star, if you want to psychoanalyze her, and like she got popular really young. She talks in her documentary about having a bad childhood. There's, I think, some trauma there, and then like she gets popular for that movie 13, and there's like a scene in 13 where she's like screaming and crying, but that's the one note she then plays throughout her whole life. Like she takes that character and that's like becomes her life. And she even says she, through filming Westworld, is how she opened up to her like memories and abuse of Manson. So there's no distinction for her. Like her whole life has been on the camera, right? And I think she's also an opportunist, saw that victimhood was being catapulted into the limelight, saw that as a way to destroy any power structure in her way, which is like a radical feminist thing, gender ideology. Gets linked up with Ilma Gore, who is a legit activist. And I think they see stuff like Jussie Smollett happening. They see Kavanaugh. They see this fame, this new level of fame.
And this zero questioning. So it's like kind of writing the playbook for each new woman to come forward and know that you can't, that you can go.
It's like being immortal.
And then just with the allegation phase, you're destroying someone's.
Which is why I'll call them character assassins.